Autumn, it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I had established up front what an idyllic existence to be able to travel and to see so much of the world and have so many different experiences. So to begin with, how did you get through COVID because travel was not an option? How did you
Yeah.
get through it? How has it affected the way that you travel and live now?
Yes. COVID was a difficult time because I was working in travel at the time. I was a travel design manager. So my basically my position was creating incentive trips for companies around the world. And when they would get that incentive, then they would be sent on the trip that basically I would build. And what happened was that a lot of people got laid off. Things kind of changed, and I found myself with out of job, and I was at home and everything was shut down. And I started thinking about all of my photos that no one had ever seen, and my journals that I had kept writing over the past 10 years, or 8 years or so at that point. And I started documenting my travels into like this Word document and writing all about them, kind of like going back through the memories. And then I started editing my photos. And essentially, I built my own business, which was a travel photography and selling my travel photography. And then also, I wrote a book. So those travel journals turned into a book. So that's really what kept my wanderlust going during COVID, and it kept me just kept on thinking about places that I had been and reminiscing in that time.
So exactly right now in 2024, to get a handle on what you do for a living, and you would probably be one of the favorite people at Career Day, but if you were in front of a bunch of third graders and one of the kids in the back of the room shot his hand up and said, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer
Yeah.
him?
Yeah, so I would say that I am a travel photographer and a travel author. And what I do is I wrote a book and I'm writing my second book now. And while I go around the world, I take pictures and then I sell my pictures to people who are looking for canvases in their homes, or if they're looking for calendars, greeting cards, postcards, matted prints. All different things. I started doing puzzles, things like that, and being able to go to different places and capture shots with my camera, and then go to different art fairs as well, and art shows and art exhibitions. And then for those people who have maybe always wanted to go, but it was inaccessible to them, or they have been before, but they're just unable to travel, and they want to go through that reminiscing of the memory. My goal and my hope is that they'll be able to see my photography and have those moments come back to them, if they are wanting that.
So that's a beautiful shot behind you. Where's that at?
So this is actually not my photo. I'm so sorry.
Ooh, yeah, that's nice. Yeah, very cool. I think we lost our here. I think I no, I can't. No, I can't. Huh? It's weird. Okay, there we go. No, no, you got it. I hear you.
Oh, you
All of a
can hear
sudden,
me.
I saw the little thing come up that said you're connecting, so yeah, we're good. Yeah. So
Oh, weird. Would
yeah.
this be better or would this be better?
Either way, I think we're good. I mean, I can hear you just fine, so I think we're in good
Okay.
shape. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So I think we're good. So let me ask you this. How did this happen? I mean, let's go back a little bit. When you were in the third grade, what was your dream? What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be I wanted to be a teenager so I could date. um, but realistically, I always wanted to be a teacher. So I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher or an elementary school teacher, and I went through invitation to teach as a senior, and I taught first grade. I went into education, and I just didn't like it. It was really hard. It was way harder than I ever thought that it would be.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what changed everything.
Wow. Interesting. So I got a quick question. Do you know who Rick Steves is on PBS, the travel guy?
Yes, I do.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
okay. I got a good story for you. I went to Paris on September 4th, 2001, with the whole goal of going through Europe and kind of seeing some cool places. And 9/11 happened when I was in Venice. So my flight from Paris to Kansas City didn't exist, and I had to find my way back to America. So long story short, one of the places right after that we went to was a little place called Cinque Terre, and it's the poor man's Riviera. And we went to Vernazza, which is kind of an old hippie commune, probably the best place for an American to be at that point with everything that was going on.
Mhm.
So I'm walking, and it's basically one little strip, and there's all these housing and complexes and whatnot. And I'm walking up, and before I went on this trip, I studied Rick Steves, looked into all of his guides, and there he is with the camera crew. And I'm like, wait, hold on a second. Yeah. So
Oh
it,
my gosh.
yeah, so he's there filming a segment, and it was totally bizarre. So I didn't get to talk to him. It happened so fast. But anyway, I ran into Rick Steves. I think it was on the
Wow.
12th of September of 2001. So yeah,
Oh my
it
gosh.
was wild.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
That
wild.
is a wild story.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. That's a good story
Yeah, it
too.
is.
That's
I,
a good story.
it was wild. So I want to know, how did this job come about? How did you land this gig where you get to do such a wonderful, glorified existence? How did it happen?
Thank you. So it all started when I was 15. I took a film photography course, and my dad was a photographer, and so I just wanted to be like my dad
Yeah.
growing up. And so I used his camera for the very first time for this course, and I just kind of fell in love with photography. And then when I was a senior in college, I was able to study abroad. In England, and every week I would fly to a new country and take pictures in the new country. And this was just something that I thought of as an idea that would be fun because I didn't know at the time if I'd ever be able to go back to Europe. And so I was just like, okay, let's live in the moment and see what we can do. And then when I graduated, I wanted to do something in travel, and I put my application in to become a flight attendant. I was accepted, and then I flew with the airlines. Was based in Minneapolis here, and then ever since then, I've just kind of had this love of travel, and it kind of all fell together. Um,
Wow. So, of all of these places that you've traveled to and seen in the world, what has that done for you and the way that you view the world? Because you've seen so many cultures, it has to broaden some level of empathy. How has it ultimately enriched how you see this life?
Thank you. That's a really good question. I I fully believe being able to travel to these places has brought in everything that I thought of the world and how small it is, because so many people are all wanting the same thing. They're all wanting just to be good, kind people and love people, and they want the best for their families and they want the best for their friends. And just meeting people from different cultures, if it's South America or if it's Hong Kong or Europe, they're all just kind of looking for that same thing. And I really cherish the moments with it because it kind of levels this playing field game of life where
Yep.
it's just like, wow, we're all so much more alike than I ever even possibly realized.
Yeah. That's what I've
Sorry, I'm
realized.
like getting emotional,
Yeah, no, I get it. No, it
but it's a
is.
good question.
Yeah, yeah, it has to be an emotional thing because you've seen so much, but I feel like that's the way podcasting is. I've genuinely felt like there is this union of all of us that's very different from what the media portrays us as being such
Mm-hmm.
separate entities, one side or the other. We are all
Yeah.
really, like you said, we're all going towards the same kinds of things in this life and on this planet, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So so of all of these places that you've been to, what is one of the places that was unexpectedly magical or beautiful and you just did not expect it?
Totally unexpectedly, hands down, it would be Morocco,
Wow.
Marrakesh, Morocco. When I first went, I will be completely honest, I was scared. I was nervous. Um, I was going with my husband, and I was feeling comfortable that I would be going with him and not going alone. And I had been reading all these things online about what to wear and what to say and to be very careful. And when I went there, I had a lot of anxiety arriving. And then as the day went through, and as like we stayed there for I think 5 days or so. And when we were there, it was just the people were so kind. And it got to the point that at the end of the 5 days, these shopkeepers that I had met, the tour guides that I had met, they invited my husband and I to sit with them in their shops, and they introduced us to their whole family. We sat down, they poured us a pot of tea, and this happened many times with all different people. And when I got back from my trip, I was in the airport and I just was completely flabbergasted, thinking I was so scared of something that was unknown to me, and I did it, and I ended up getting friendships with people that I still have to this day
Yeah.
from Morocco. And it just is something that completely blew my mind away.
So of all of these places that you've been to, what's the one place that you haven't been to that you're just itching to go to?
Well, to be completely honest, it would be Antarctica. If there was
Wow.
some possible way to go to
Yeah.
Antarctica, I would love to go. But on more realistic scale, I would really love to go to Vietnam or to go to Greece or Croatia. Those are the top three, I think, right now on my bucket list.
I interviewed someone that was kind of doing a little bit of what you're doing, globetrotting, and I think they were nomads, digital nomads, and they
Mhm.
said that Vietnam is crazy cool. Like the
Yes.
climate, it's the jungles, the different landscapes, the people are wonderful. Like there's and the history that we've had, obviously, as a
Mhm.
country, knowing it, and all these years later, that would just be crazy. The amount of energy on that part of the world would be insane.
Yes, yes. I definitely think it's one of those rapidly increasing popularity places. I personally think it might become like the next Iceland, where Iceland was getting really big in like early 2012, 2013. It was getting like gaining that popularity. And I feel like Vietnam is just like, coming in clutch, just like Japan had
Yeah.
that as well.
So there's a special, and I believe it's on Prime, maybe Hulu, I can't remember, but Rainn Wilson, Dwight from The Office, had this series called The Pursuit of Happiness. Did you hear about this?
I did hear about it. I haven't been able to watch it yet, but
Okay.
I have heard of it.
So when you said Iceland, he wanted to find the places that were the happiest on the planet, like the top five places that have happiness and the top five of not. And the number one place that was that he found was the most miserable was Belarus. The number one place that he found that was the most happy was Iceland. And he had a friend there, and they drove around and they were talking about it, and they were really talking about the way that they adapt to climate and things coming in and the unexpected beauty and all of the things that go into it. And it was fascinating just how he analyzed how these regions live. And you wouldn't think Iceland, but it made total
Yes.
sense after I saw the segment.
Definitely. I like to say that Iceland is kind of like this magical place where it looks like Mother Nature threw up everywhere, but in like the most beautiful way
Yeah, yeah.
because it's just gorgeous there.
And one of my favorite bands is Sigur Rós, and I just love to come from there to be able to create that sound. It's and Bjork's wonderful,
Yep.
so they there's a lot
Hmm.
of good artists that come out of there. So aside from your father, which you had mentioned being a big influence on you, who was kind of an inspiration or a hero for you in this pursuit of seeing the world and documenting it?
Honestly, it's going to be cliche. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, but it's actually my mom.
Nice.
When I was younger, my mom would take us to, she would plan these trips every year. And she would say, we're going to go and see the United States. So we went to Washington, D.C., we went to the Holocaust Museum, we went to the Grand Canyon and Niagara Falls and Las Vegas and all these things when I was younger, just to get a grasp of what the United States was about. Um, and then as she has gotten older, she has been diagnosed with macular degeneration. So she's losing her eyesight. And it is something really hard for me to watch because I desperately want to show her all these places that I've been able to go. And I think in my deep heart that I believe that this is such a driving factor for me because maybe if she's not able to go and see it herself, maybe my words in a book can describe it.
Yeah.
Maybe she can see, some of my photos, if they're on a canvas, something like that, where she'll be able to kind of grasp it, or just talking to me on the phone and I'm FaceTiming them and when I'm in Austria and things like that. And I just feel like that's probably one of the determining factors for me is um, growing up in that environment, but also being able to still bring it home
Yep.
today.
Yeah. It when the first real big trip that I made was going to Florence. Well, I went to a little town called Castle Ferentio, and this was in like the late 90s. I had a pen pal in high school, and I decided to go over there, and my ancestors came from Italy. And I remember going over there as excited as I was, and this was before the conversion to euro, and it was lira, and lira were in the thousands, and I heard all these stories of how they rip you off and all this pickpocketing and all of that. And I didn't know the language, and I had to really study up. But I remember before I went, as excited as I was terrified. So, what was that trip for you? One of the seminal first trips where you were on your own, not familiar with the language, currency, and how they roll. Were you, because afterwards I was like, oh my God, this was one of the most frightening things, but it was the best thing I ever did in my life. What
Yes.
moment like that, what trip was that for you?
To be honest, I would say it was Amsterdam. It
Wow.
was one of the very first trips I ever took on my own. I didn't go with anyone. I booked this hostel, which was in the middle of the red light district. And I went there, and I was really nervous because I'd heard these things about Amsterdam and all these, to be careful within the red light district. And when I went there, I was taking pictures in front of the I Am Amsterdam statue there. And as I was taking pictures, there was this group of guys that were from the United States. And I started talking with them, or they started talking with me. And within like a few hours, we had gone to the Heineken Museum. We had traveled all throughout Amsterdam, and it was just me and these four guys in the military that
Nice.
had come to Amsterdam for a weekend. And it just was one of those moments where they walked me to my hostel at the end of the night. They made sure that I got in. They were just so kind and really nice gentlemen. And I feel like coming from that trip and being able to be in my seat from Amsterdam back to England, I just felt so proud of myself because I was really afraid of what could happen. And then it ended up being that I created these friendships
Yeah.
on the fly in the middle of the street, talking with people. And it just kind of gave me that confidence boost of, you can do this, girl. Like, even though it's scary at first, like, just keep on going. And you never know what kind of friendships you may meet.
Yeah. Well, and that's perfect security detail. poor dudes in the military. I mean, that's like an
Yeah, that's
entourage,
true.
right? I mean, that's a dream scenario. That would be
Yeah.
something people would hire if they went places they weren't
Yeah,
familiar with.
yeah. I
And
never
you
thought of
you
it that way.
just karmically fell into it. So I'm curious, the thing that you can't escape when you travel is that all of these places are drenched with history. Like when I went to Europe for the first time, I realized how young America is. And you get all these realizations. So if you had the opportunity to get into a time machine and go back to any of these places that you've seen and historically see an event unfold before your very eyes, what would you love to have seen?
Ooh. Well, okay. I don't know if this is a weird question or weird answer, but I also, you know, I'm a Christian, and so I
Yeah.
think like for me, I would want to go back to that time frame,
Yeah.
because I just think it would be really cool to meet Jesus.
Yeah.
Um, but aside from that part, I think that it would be really great and interesting to go to England, kind of when the Canterbury was the place to be. I mean, it still is, but right when it was starting, and there was Canterbury Tales and all these famous authors there. So
Yeah, that would be cool. So, Autumn, everyone out there has a perception of you. Family, friends, everyone that sees your work, everyone that knows you, but you ultimately run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think that I am someone who has high anxiety, but someone who continuously tries to beat that anxiety every day when I am trying to do something when it comes to my work. And I think it's something that I talk about in my book, but it just being able to willingly again and again tell myself, keep going, it's okay. And honestly, it's really my support system
Yeah,
who is just so helpful. It's not really me, but there is that part of me where it's like, look at all these places that you've been. And when you get nervous or scared or have anxiety, just to like remember back on those times,
yep,
which can be hard to look back on because you're like, oh, well, you were younger and you didn't know, as much as you know now.
yep.
But still to kind of have that belief inside of you that, aside from everything, you are capable and you can do that. And that took me a really long time to get to that point in my life, I think. I
That's such
still
a
struggle with it, but
that's such a great answer though, because travel does embolden and give you confidence, and it gives you this palette that's just so much deeper and richer than if you didn't do it. It's such a good thing, you know? So, if anyone wants to indulge in your adventures, in your photography, anything related to your world, where's the best place to go?
yes, thank you. The best place for someone to be interested is, well, I'm on social media. So I have Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube at Autumn Carolyn Photography. And the Carolyn has two N's instead of one. So I have that. And then I also have my website, which is uh, Autumn Carolyn with two N's.com. And on my website, you can purchase my book. But my book is also available on Amazon, Walmart, all the places, Barnes and Noble, as well.
Excellent. Autumn, this has been fascinating. Thank you for your story. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a blast.
It was great. Thank you. And happy
Thank you.
travels.